Salute, Nick family. Welcome to the Queen's Court. I'm your host, Stephanie, aka Queen. The regular season is over. The Knicks won 50 games. The Knicks are the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. Listen, when we did our predictions to begin the season, I said, the Knicks should probably win anywhere between 47 and 52 wins. Then we lose Randall. Then we make 2 trades. We're trying. OG is out. Um, there was games when we looked really good, and there was other games where it looked like, man. There was times in the season we was the 4th seed. There were times in the season when we were probably 2 games above the play-in, and it all started to come together. Probably the last 10 games of the season, maybe the last 8 games of the season, starting to get a little more from Bojan to help our bench. Brunson, listen, he's in incredible shape. I mean, this is the 82nd game of the season, and he's missed some games. He's looked phenomenal. And that's what the good ones do. The good ones take their game to another level when you need it to. The Knicks were very conscious. I haven't heard any reports, but I think they were very conscious that they had a chance to win 50 games and how important that was for the franchise and how important that is to changing the narrative of the Knicks. I'm not sure if that was on their mind. And how important it is to get the 2nd seed. Oh man, if you're a long-suffering Knicks fans, and some of you, maybe go back just to, Carmelo years. Some of you may go back to the Patrick Ewing years. I go back before Patrick Ewing, Truck Robinson, and all of those guys. And I've been through the good times, not the championship times, but some good times with Patrick Ewing, that era, and some really dark times. And it just feels good to see that the tide is turning and that we have a bona fide superstar. And I know there's some, in Nick Nation who don't believe Brunson is a superstar. But for me, I feel like Brunson is as good as any player on any other team, in my opinion. You look at his stats and how they match up against other players in the entire league, not just on his team, not just on the Eastern Conference. Look at his numbers and how they match up against any player in the NBA. They're right up there. When you think about a superstar, what do you think about? For me, and there's different definitions of it. For me, a superstar, you know exactly what they're going to do, and there's nothing you can do about it. You know the ball is going to them. You know when it's going to them. There's nothing you can do. That's Brunson. They're clutch. You can go to them at the end of the game. That's Brunson. And they carry the team. He hasn't had much consistent help. Let's put it that way. And he's carried this team to 50 wins and the number 2 seed. Now, don't get me wrong. He's had help. Devo has had an incredible season. Hart stepped in for Mitchell Robinson, an incredible season. Josh Hart rounded into form. I don't know, sometime maybe after the All-Star break, if not a little before. That's helped. Thibodeau has his guys pulling the strings. Precious, we've gotten a lot from Precious. So my point is Brunson is not doing it by himself, but he's the head of the snake. He is the head of the snake. And it just feels good to finally say the Knicks got one. Like we got one, So I'm just super excited about where the Knicks are. We're on our way back, and I feel we'll talk about the playoffs. But in my opinion, right now we're playing with house money. We're playing with house money. Who expected us to be here without Randall? With OG playing, I don't know how many games he's played since he's been here. Super excited about the Knicks and where we're going. Let me bring in the panel: Tony Crow, Knicks and Bruises, Jeff Clafter, Dope Soul Sports Talk resident panelist, Lady and the Chef, 2 Knicks chicks. How you guys doing?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. I ended my show with positivity. But I do have to just say something to you, Queen.
Mhm.
You didn't mention. You said it started with Randall going down, but it started with Mitch going down.
With Mitch going down.
I
You're right.
just I just
Absolutely.
want to
You're
add that
right.
to it.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
She was
And
just trying to get Stafford to call into the show.
right. And the Knicks were the fans when Mitchell Robinson went out, right? The fans was like, "Oh my God, what are we gonna do?" Mitch is, the season he's having, blah, blah, blah. This team, anyway. Let's get into it. What? Let me just put this up really quick so we can see. The Knicks, right? The season record with 50-32, 4-0 over the last week. Finished second in the Eastern Conference, a miracle, just amazing. We've won 5 straight games. Offensive rating, we're seventh. This is for the season. Seventh in offense, ninth in defense, fifth in net rating. A top 10 team in offense, defense, and net rating. Over the last 10 games, though, third in offensive rating, 24th in defensive rating. That has to tighten up a little bit, and I believe it will. And 12th in net rating. So the question I have is just what are your thoughts on the Knicks season overall? And as far as what you predicted for the Knicks coming into the season, did they meet or not meet your expectations, or did they exceed your expectation? We'll go around Tony, Jeff, Lady and the Chef. We'll do it the opposite on the next question and then mix it up after that. You're muted.
Muted tone.
My bad. My bad. I think I had them at 50 or 51 wins, something like that. And even though we at 50 and didn't surpass it, they still surpassed my expectation. And largely due to all the things you mentioned with the injuries, the whole front court basically gone, right, for a significant amount of time. Two trades, everything, and still sustaining through all this adversity. So definitely exceeded. Even with the 50 wins, I didn't know or think that would be enough to be the number 2 seed. So obviously the teams around us helped in that in a sense, but I mean, we are where we are and we here. So yeah, they definitely exceeded my expectation. But I will say my expectation also has risen since, you know what I mean, or to start this playoff. So and the journey, man. They talk about the journey, and some players don't even enjoy the journey as it's going on. That's one thing about this season. I enjoyed the journey from start to finish. You know what I mean? Even with the adversity, you know what I mean? Like this was probably my best year just potting, just what I mean, jumping on shows and doing my shows. And I'm sure the Nick community probably feels the same way. Like this is probably the best year that every one of us has had doing this. So
No doubt. What is there anything particular that stood out for you this season?
I mean, Tibbs probably making all the adjustments that he's made, even from starting off the year stubborn still and stuck in some of his ways to I mean, I think all these injuries and things like that, he's had to adjust. But he did it, right?
Yeah.
Even when it comes to minute restrictions for Hartenstein down the stretch, you know what I mean? Like living with that. Adjusting his rotation to not rushing to bring Brunson back anytime a lead gets cut down to 4 or a league or we're down by 6, you know what I mean? Automatically that would mean timeout, Brunson comes back. Down the stretch. Nope. Brunson, you waiting until the 6-minute mark. I trust these guys. Yeah, you know what I mean? So he's has trust in legit 9 players. You know what I mean? And even some of the people after the 9 have gotten legitimate shots, opportunities. You know what I mean? So to get that, you got to have some trust from Tibbs as well.
Jeff, your thoughts on the Knicks season overall and whether or not they met, didn't meet, or exceeded your expectations coming into the season?
Well, in the category of a blind squirrel can find an acorn, I think I did have them at 50 wins, which, right on the button. But there's no way I imagined they were getting 50 the way that they did. I mean, to win 6 of your last 7 and go from look, we were 29-17 when Julius Randle went down. And I remember the conversations. Are we going to be a play-in team? Or are we going to be able to how we're going to struggle? Are we going to get to the top 6? Like there was all this doubt. And because OG went down the exact same time.
Right.
And this team just showed a fabulous resilience that personifies the city of New York to the ultimate degree. And I don't know that I've been a Knicks fan since the Bernard King era, but I don't know that I've ever had more fun with a regular season than the one I did this time, because it didn't matter what obstacle you threw at this team. They just said, okay, we're going to keep coming. It doesn't matter what you do. We're going to keep coming. And the results aren't always going to be there, but we're going to do our thing and we're going to trust our process. And we're going to say, if we do the things that Coach Thibodeau has installed and we do them well, we're going to come out with a win. It doesn't matter who we have on the floor. I mean, I don't ever remember a case of how many next man ups have we had on this team. I think we've had 26 different players who actually saw the court for the Knicks this year. That's insane. I think the Pistons set the record with 31, and they won like 14 games or something like that. We had 26 different players, and we had the second best record in the East, a top 10 net rating, a top 10 offensive rating, a top 10 defensive rating, one of 4 teams that can say that on the season. That's phenomenal.
Phenomenal.
But yeah, exceeded my expectations the way that it happened. Like, if you told me at the beginning of the year we were going to win 50 games, I thought that was about right based on I thought we were going to be a little bit better than last year. But with everything that they've had to go through, as Tony more eloquently put it than me, that's just an incredible job, and it exceeds all my expectations. And I guess I'm the opposite from Tony. He says his expectations have gone up. To me, it's kind of like you said, it's all house money from here. It's gravy. If we go as far as we go, but and they're capable of going really far. Don't get me wrong, but just based upon what they have versus what they could have had or what they should have had, I don't know that it's fair to put them to the same standard of expectation, even though they have been great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Lady in the shop. Oh, go ahead.
Real quick, just the expectation not only went up for me right now, but moving forward as well. You know what I mean? Once Randall's 100%.
I agree 100% with that.
And I just want to add the tidbit of, I mean, we did these 2 big trades. Didn't move a first round pick. You know what I mean? So our future, whether it's making another big move, is still as bright as it's ever been.
Yeah. Before Lady and the Chef, I have a huge announcement to make. Keith Turner, I give Tibbs hell, but he has done a fantastic job this regular season. So we're going to take just a few moments to just breathe that in.
Hold up, leave it up.
Is it going to snow tomorrow in West Texas?
Got it.
You got it?
Yeah, I got it.
Oh my God, Keith Turner! Wow, this is what it took. 50 wins, the number 2 seed in the Eastern.
Welcome to the other side of the tracks, Keith.
Shout out to Keith Turner. Lady in the chat.
Yeah, I for sure had the Knicks at 50 wins. I thought they could have done it from the rip. Considering where they were last year, my expectations were already high before we went through this injury spell, just because of where the Knicks went last year. So my expectations were already high. But you know what? For me, what really I think stood out was the fact that the Knicks didn't lose by huge margins this year.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of times the Knicks crawled back from being down by 20, 25 points in games.
Mm-hmm.
And just the Knicks staying the course and staying confident, even when they lost the easy chippers that they should have won.
Right.
And to come back that next game and to fight and crawl back and be able to win. And I think the Knicks did a pretty good job this season, not doing too many of the like win 2-3, then lose 1 or 2. They stayed pretty consistent for the most part this season, despite the amount of injuries that occurred. So for me, I mean, I think it's very impressive considering that this team doesn't have a 1-2 punch or a three-headed monster like other teams may have, and that we really only have like one main guy who's really able to go to work and not have his 1B option, and that being Randall. So that to me is very impressive. And to have the games, just looking at the Chicago game and how in that little span of time, like Precious Achua came in and gave you those blocks, and he was able to give you those easy buckets. It's those little things that players do when they come in that, like you said, Queen, how you said sometimes you watch this team and you go, what's going on out there? And then other times you go, this is the team that got us to the 50 wins. This is the team that fought and was diving on the ball. And, so, and even in that game, there was a couple like, small little mistakes that I thought they should have cleaned up. And they were like, like we were all like looking like, what's going on? The ball was bouncing off your kneecap.
Oh, the Chicago game? Oh my God. It's like, what are we doing?
Balls were flying in the crowd. Right. I was like, what's happening here? But I
Even
think
Brunson
that,
during the circus. My
yeah,
bad.
it was like crazy. I was like, what's going on here? So, but it was like the other little things. And that was a close game because technically if DeRozan would have hit that shot, it would have been very, so and kudos to Chicago because they did a great job playing defense and on the Knicks in general, and especially Caruso and Brunson. But I think this team this year has proven that despite the odds between the haters, the journalists, the sports broadcasters counting the Knicks out and still counting the Knicks out to this day, I think, like I said, this Knicks team has a story to tell, and I think that they're going to surpass what people are doubting that they can do.
Great point. Yeah, 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 no doubt about it. Um, anything else in terms of what stood out for you this season in any order? If there was something you didn't mention.
I mean, gotta give Deuces credit,
I was
right?
about to say, yeah.
when them trades went down, he had an opportunity to come in and step up and play big minutes and increase his role, took advantage. But not just that. I mean, even with the trades, we had what do they call him? Evil DiVincenzo. What was his name? You know what I mean? Like, but he had guys continually coming to the Knicks, potentially there to, make his role a threat. You know what I mean? Whether it's
Right.
Shake Milton down the stretch, you know what I mean? Burks coming back. It's like, and Deuce was like, nah, I fought my way back. I fought my way into this role. I'm not losing it to nobody. You either gonna play alongside me or you're not gonna play because I'm not giving up this spot. And kudos for him because he ain't look like he felt any type of pressure. You know what I mean? He was like, nope. My pressure was getting here. You know what I mean? Getting into the circle. Getting in the rotation. Not making mistakes when I got here, and now I'm here. This is easy now. This is the easy part.
Yeah.
and continuing to do it. You know what I mean? Whether his role increases or reduces, Deuce seems to be a staple in like I'm gonna produce in whatever minutes role I am given.
Yeah.
My bad. And that's like the motto of this whole team. We got a hero. Shout out to Sin with Captain Clutch. Or then we got a bunch of unsung heroes. You know what I mean?
Right.
All around them.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. It's just it's too many to mention in depth, too much to mention in depth in terms of what stood out for me this season. But overall, the grit of this team, the mental toughness of this team, the belief that okay, Mitch went down, okay, Randall went down, okay, we just traded for OG, and he like it's just the train kept going. And there were some hiccups along the way. Let's not forget that 4 and 8 February, right? So there was definitely some hiccups along the way. Let's not forget March after the trade for Burks and Bojan. How a lot of us thought this was going to be a really um, good thing for the team, that it was going to translate almost immediately in terms of them being a boost for our bench. And it just didn't. Burks, he's out the rotation now. He never came along. Bojan was hit or miss, though he's coming on, as of late. The Knicks just kept moving, just kept moving. So that definitely stood out for me. Thibodeau, and I don't know if this is him growing as a coach, changing his philosophy as a coach, or just that he has his players that he trusts. The way he's using the rotation, sometimes precious plays and sometimes he doesn't get a lot of minutes. You know, McBride was in the starting lineup, then OG came back, he got like 18 minutes. Is like, what do we need today? Who do I need today? And I'm really liking that about him. And another thing that stood out is that Brunson, in my opinion, has crossed over into superstardom. And I may be early on that, but I might be late. I think Jeff was saying this earlier. I was like, superstar? I don't know about superstar. But I feel like to me, he's every bit as good as in what Embiid is doing for Philly, what Tatum is doing for Boston, or what he was doing for Boston before he got all of those other players around him. Um, what Giannis is doing for Milwaukee, like just carrying a team and putting them on their back and doing the best they can, if the roster is not, championship ready. Brunson is doing those things. I don't have the slide, but I believe he's top 4 in scoring, number of 30-point games, number of 40-point games, number of 40-point games plus 11 assists, all top 5. You can put his numbers up against many of the superstars in this league. So everybody, like I said in the intro, everybody has their own definition of a superstar, but what Brunson is going to do. Where he wants to go. His spots. Good luck. Good luck. So I, I'm happy for the Knicks because this is a long time coming, man. I don't know if Diva Locks is listening because I know she goes way back listening to the Knicks as well. This is a long time coming, like Sam Cooke. You know what I mean?
Oh, don't get me singing.
Okay. So yeah, I think Jalen Brunson, because I'm like, how can he get better? We said this in the beginning of the season. How can Brunson get better? He's gotten better. And I'm really looking forward to his playoff journey as we go toward a championship. Because it's not always a straight line. As you go deeper into the playoffs, you got to learn what it takes. Look at Embiid, hasn't got out the second round. Look at Tatum, who's been to the finals multiple times and haven't been able to get over the hump. The deeper you go into the playoffs, it just calls for different parts of you. But I don't have any doubt that he'll be able to meet the challenge. So yeah, those are all of the things that stood out for me.
What's awesome about this? Like,
Mhm.
granted, we are where we are now, and we wouldn't be here without Brunson. But this thing started before Brunson, right? It really started with Tibbs. If you think about that first year we made the playoffs with him, even though we weren't, one of the top seeds or one of the top teams out there from the perspective,
Mhm.
the narrative was still, oh, it's a gritty team. You don't want to get into a dogfight with them. They're not gonna give up. You know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
all the things that still remain true today. I mean, that's what it was then with some lesser players. You know what I mean? So then you bring in slowly this year, Twinkle, sprinkle in Josh Hart. You get a DiVincenzo in there, get an OG in there. You start sprinkling these players that kind of fit Tibbs' philosophy and buy in and are willing to. I mean, Tibbisms sacrifice. You know what I
Right.
mean? You talk about Precious playing 34 minutes and then playing 10. You talk
Right.
about Duke starting and then playing 18 minutes. Like
Right.
you have to be willing to do these things
Right.
and not fight it. You know what I mean? Know that you're gonna have an opportunity, you're gonna have a time, and when that time comes and that opportunity comes, produce. And these guys and be ready. And these guys continue to do that. But yeah, again, shout out to Tibbs, man, because he's preached it from the beginning, no matter who was here. But then you start getting the guys in that fit and believe and buy in, and you just immediately see the difference. And now it starts looking like, man, like Tibbs is not a good coach, a great coach.
Yeah. He comes from that same tree Spoelstra is coming from, that Pat Riley tree. Pat Riley, Van Gundy, Tom Thibodeau, Clifford, Spoelstra, they all come from that same tree, basically. They have their culture, they know how they want to play. You got to buy in. Um, yeah. And he finally has, the players to do it with. And the thing about Tibbs too, part of the culture is stop talking and do what you need to do on the court. You start talking, you inching your way out the door. You start complaining, you inching your way out the door, because it's about the team and what the team needs, and it's not about you. Cam, um, um, uh,
Obi,
Obi, Grimes,
Grimes.
and Fournier. It's just put your head down and do the work. Those are the type of players he want. And I think and that's why McBride is still here. Obviously his defense, his shooting has come around as well. But I think his approach endeared himself to Tom Thibodeau as well. Somebody that's just gonna come in, work, put his head down, bide his time, wait, and when he get his time, shine. So kudos to McBride, getting it together. All right. I do want to just mention, we're going to talk a little bit about um, Brunson. He was named Play of the Week for the NBA, no doubt Play of the Year for the New York Knicks. We were 4-0 this week, 38.5 points per game, 7.5 assists per game, 50% from the 3-point line. And when we did the show last week, we saw if we won 4, we would need to win out in order to reach 50 games and have a chance at that number 2 seed. And that's exactly what we did. Talk about what he has meant to the Knicks this season and what he means to the Knicks overall in terms of what we're hoping to do. So we'll start with Lady and the Chef, Jeff, Tony, and then we'll mix it up after that.
Yeah, Jalen Brunson has been a tremendous pickup for the Knicks. I think one, because the Knicks haven't had a true point guard in many years, and we've seen that in the past how the offense was orchestrated, it lack thereof, if it was. But I think to watch his ability again, and I'll even go to the last game when we played Chicago. Caruso played pretty well defense on Brunson,
Really good defense.
and Brunson still managed with certain times he was able to get screens set for him. Brunson still managed to have his way and outplay and outsmart Caruso offensively once he got the ball in his hands. And that was really impressive to me because he was still able to go to his spots and get the shots that he wanted over really good defense, but it was just better offense. And that's what really good players and superstars do. You can have really a great defender on you and great defense, but you can have better offense, and it's just nothing you can do about it. You can do everything you want to do, double team, triple team him. A great player is still going to find a way to score their points, and Jalen Brunson does that. But I think also what he's brought to this team is a sense of trust. I think his leadership and his scoring puts other players at ease. And when they see him doing his thing, I think that becomes infectious to the other guys on the team because they're like, they see him working his butt off. They see him getting to the free throw line, sacrificing his body to take the offensive fouls on teams and you know just the smart decisions that he makes also like the patience that he has when he's has taller players on him or just when that double team comes on him, he's not holding it too long. He's able to give the ball up. He's able to get it back and either go to work and get us the points or he makes the right pass to get it to whoever so they can score and make the points. But I think that that was what was lacking on this team was leadership, like a true leader. And I even commend Randall for coming out and being vocal and sharing that he is not comfortable being the 1A, the top guy. So having a player like Brunson come in and do that, it speaks volumes. And then that really helped for Randall because Randall felt like, okay, now I can relax my shoulders because I have some help. And he trusted Brunson. That trust is there. And between the two of them, they were able to start trusting other guys like, okay, I could pass him the ball. I could pass him the ball. I know you're going to do what you think. So, I think Brunson being here has really elevated this team to a different caliber because the Knicks, I think, were at times they were mediocre and they were just okay. And now this team is a good team, and they're only going to continue to keep getting better. I do agree with you that I think that I don't want to see Brunson still bringing up the ball every single time. I think he does need some help in that area. And we see that now on the floor. But I do think that what he has brought to this team and what he's done for this Knicks organization and the Knicks being able to acquire him. And I also love to see his dad like pull him to the side and show him and point out things like, on the floor, like, if you go over here, you do this move because he's coming at you this way. I watch that all the time. And I think that really helps him because he's like, all right, cool. And it's no, Tibbs doesn't step on his dad's toes on Rick's toes because it's like, that's what they do. That's they bond. I mean, he knows what he's doing. That's why he's also on the staff. He's a coach as well. But I think what Brunson has brought here is something different. It's refreshing. I think it's good that we all as Knicks fans could sit here and feel with confidence that not only are we second in the East, we won 50 wins since 2013. I mean, the fact that we're having first and things that haven't happened in years and decades, it speaks volumes because of what he's brought to this team. So, and just to be making Eastern Conference Player of the Week multiple times, giving you 35 plus points multiple times throughout the season, and still one of the few players who actually sacrifices his body because every time I see him jiggling his wrist, I'm like, oh boy.
Right.
Again, he keeps holding his wrist. So, holding his ankle. But I just think that it's a true testament to the warrior that he is and what it does to this team. And I'm loving it.
Now, yeah, I totally agree with you. Jeff?
Well, they used to say that when you had two choices and both of them were bad, it was a catch-22. Well, it's a catch-11 now because what you see with this man is that, and he's had such an evolution in his game since Randall went out, and maybe it's always been there and he hasn't had to do it as much, but the way that he's attacking the double team when it comes, as Lady and the Chef said, at getting us into a 4-on-3, you know what I mean? So you can either play me single and I'm going to eat you up and eat your lunch, or you can double me and then we're going to have 4-on-3 and I've got shooters in each corner and I've got two guys in Hart and Hartenstein who can kill you with the pass and with cutters. And so, that's what makes this offense so elite right now. and so much different than what we saw last year come playoff time.
Right.
So I think that one of the things that we're concerned about, and you brought it up on Tony's show, is what happens when they put the focus on, put the spotlight on Brunson and say, what if they just guard him straight up and ask everybody else, you know what I mean? Take away everyone else. I think you just get cooked. And at a certain point, yeah, he can't do it by himself, but he can do enough damage where some of those guys are going to get open. I mean, he's so good, and he gets to his spots at will. And there's not Alex Caruso is an all NBA quality type defender, and he scored 40 on him twice.
Yeah, he did.
Twice. Like this is not some chump change guy that he's picking on. And Caruso was up to the challenge both times. As Lady and the Chef said, he was out there for pride. He didn't have anything else to play for. He wanted to show that he was the best defender and that Brunson couldn't cook him. And he ended up the game well done anyway. I mean, that's phenomenal. I mean, that's just great. What this man does, and just the spirit of him as a leader and as a teammate and someone, he doesn't have to say a whole lot. He just leads with how he plays, and his game talks for him. And he doesn't care about the accolades or any of that stuff. The only thing he cares about is a letter W.
Right.
If we win, I don't care if I have 15 points or if I have 60 points. I don't care if I don't care what else happens. If we get the win, that's all that matters. My team matters. And you just see that his teammates rally around him. Like the camaraderie on this team, and it helps that he has two of his college buddies there, but it's just not the Novalox boys that it's like that with. I think you see Hartenstein is in there. You see, and even OG, who hasn't been here that long. I mean, you see OG step up. The other day when he got pushed in the back, OG said, you ain't doing that, friend. And you know what I mean? He just, and how long have we been asking for an enforcer on this team? Like, I don't know how many times we had the discussion that because of Julius Randle, we said, well, your all NBA guy can't be your enforcer. Well, now it's not our all NBA guy. That's our enforcer. I don't think anybody wants to mess with OG. And, that dude is big and he's strong and he's tough and he's athletic. But even him, I just think that he feeds off of Jalen and what Jalen does and what he brings too. And to have, for those of us who remember the Alexei Shveds and the Chris Duhans and the, Emmanuel Moutiers and that, I mean, how many, the Alonzo Trier, maybe he can be a point guard, Damian Dotson or whoever, but
Right.
just like this litany of just trash players who were never any good. And just to finally, New York City is a point guard city. And to finally have at the Mecca a point guard worthy of the caliber of the city is really amazing. And just, he just is a joy to watch, man. And to me, he gives us a chance every game. If he's healthy, you got a chance to win. I don't care who you're playing.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, Tone.
Oh, my bad. What's the question? I was
Just what Jalen Brunson has meant to the Knicks this season, what he means overall, and what does he mean going forward?
I'll start with overall because I mean he's cementing himself as a all-time Knick great in 2 years. You know what I mean? In 2 years, he's cementing himself. I mean, there's questions, and this is not like a Knicks fan question. This is like an NBA fan question where they're asking, is the Brunson signing the best signing in the like modern NBA era, like free agency signing? So obviously that excludes like KD signing trade situations and any signing trade situation, but just a flat out signing. Like, this is amongst not Knicks fans, but just NBA fans. So what he means is like the he's revitalized like Knicks back into their proper space in the NBA atmosphere. You know what I mean? Like this is where we're supposed to be. Storied franchise. Um, we're back in the mainstream media, you know, and you can tell a lot of these guys don't really want to talk about the Knicks. They don't really want to give the Knicks their credit, but they have no choice. You know what I mean? Like you see what happened. You see what happened when somebody tried to discredit Brunson, and what a stir that came out to be. And I think the timing of it, she got off easy. They got off easy. You know what I mean? She can't have that type of conversation right now. So I mean, he's been everything like moving forward and long term, but right now, I mean, he's opened that window. He's like the window is now open, and it don't look like it's gonna be closing anytime soon. It looks like it's only going to be like it might not be a window after when he's done. You know what I mean? It might be like a big hole in the house because
Right.
like it's. I mean, look at the position we're in, and that's not just him. It's him. It's Tibbs. It's the front office. Like we're in the position to go all in, chips in, and solidify ourselves as not just a top team in the East, but a top team in the league, like perennial contender. But yeah,
Yeah.
he's the head of that snake.
Yeah. And you're right, Tony. This is how it starts. When was it? 3-4 years ago? Boston had a terrible, I wouldn't say a terrible first half, but they didn't do great in the first half of the season. Then after the All-Star break, they started to play better. Then they got into the playoffs and went to the Eastern to the finals, I believe it was. And then they've been contenders ever since. You know what I mean? And it was just out of nowhere. Somewhat out of nowhere. Because I think that's when Kyrie was no longer on the team. Kimba was no longer on the team. There was no expectations that Boston was going to the Eastern Conference. No, to the finals, actually. I think they played Golden State that year, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that's where we are. Brunson has just come here and just threw the window open from a crack to wide open. Yeah, a phenomenal job by him. This is shout out to Knicks Muse. He put some good things out on Twitter. I'm not if you're on Twitter, give him a follow. NBA players in the last 50 years to score over 375 points in the final 10 games of a season. 1987, Michael Jordan. 2006, Kobe Bryant. 2024, Jalen Brunson. And I know there's some that may feel like Brunson scores too much. He shoots too much. What do the points mean? It means wins. I mean, for me, I feel like Brunson is doing what the team needs of him right now. You know, if we had more scoring on this team, I can really see Brunson taking a step back from scoring and maybe doing a bit more passing. But for this particular team, as it's constructed, particularly without Julius Randle, he can't come up and score 18 points. Like that's just not going to work for this particular team. You know, and for us to get 50 wins, for us to get the number 2 seed, he needed to show up big for us in those final 10 games. And he did. You know, and he did. Is he you already know how I feel about it in terms of him being a superstar. Just your thoughts on whether or not he's a superstar. And first of all, what's your definition of a superstar? Because it varies. There's no set definition. And do you think he's there yet? Why or why not? Tony, we'll start with you, then Lady in the Chef, then Jeff. And then
Numbers.
also the chat as well. Do you think Brunson is a superstar? Why or why not? And then I'll put up the comments. Yes, Tony.
Numbers wise, impact wise, 100% he's a superstar. Even going back to like for me, I always say the definition or you could be a star in this league you can't be a superstar in this league until you perform in the playoffs. I mean, he's done that in Dallas. He's done that in New York now. You know what I mean? So he meets all the criterias to be considered a superstar 100%. But on the outside world, right? Where it kind of transcends basketball. You know what I mean? So basketball wise, he's there. But when to transcend it, I think he's on his way. You know what I mean? Because now it's not a fluke. You know what I mean? The world is looking at the playoffs. You know what I mean? They're gonna see his performances. He's gonna become a known household name when it comes to what he's doing on the floor. And I think at that point, you know what I mean, outside of just the Knicks fans or the casual basketball fan, you know, he's gonna pick up some fans outside of that. And New York, the market, I mean, the commercials, they're piling up. You know what I mean? They're piling up. I think he's already transcended Julius Randle's little surge in you know, commercials and things of that nature. So I think he's well on his way. And this is the place to do it. You know what I mean? Big media is gonna help. It's inevitable. And the more winning, the easier it becomes.
So for you, if I'm understanding you correctly, your definition of a superstar is not just basketball. Like people have to know you national. You have to have a national presence.
Yes, I mean, and I'm saying there's two different standards because basketball wise, like I said, you know, years ago, when you perform in the playoffs, that I mean, but that opens you up to a wider audience as well. It's not just your team that's seeing you when you start doing these things in the playoffs. So it comes with time, you know. But some people transcend that. Some people got the smile and Edwards, you know what I mean. Some people got the swag, the look. He's not gonna bring you any of that extra stuff. You know what I mean, the personality. He's a little quirky at times. Nope, his stuff is like I stand on business, blue collar. You know what I mean? Like it's about marketing too when it comes to superstardom. And so he's got to find his niche in that part. But basketball wise, I mean, he's right, like you said, he's right up there with any superstar you want to name.
Who did I say was next? Was it Lady and the Chef?
Lady.
Yeah. A superstar to me is one that comes through no matter what, whatever the circumstances are. And Jalen Brunson has done that. He showed up when he hasn't had any second guy to play right beside him or a third option to play right beside him. Um, he's come through despite all the injuries and carried a team by himself. And he did it last year in the playoffs. I agree with Tony as well. I think he showed me something that I was like, wow, like, huh. I said, look at what he's doing out there, how he was, and he still does that. Like, if you ever notice if someone on the opposing team is going for a fast break, Jalen Brunson's like one of the few guys who will sprint down the other end, even if he knows he can't block his shot or get in place to put his feet down and plant them down to take the offensive foul. But he's gonna go down and hustle down no matter what. He's not gonna just stay back and watch. And I love that about him. Like he hustles no matter what. And I also love how as a superstar, he talks to his team. And you don't see many teams do that in NBA. That's more of a college thing. But I love when timeouts come and he's telling guys like he's pointing and letting, DiVincenzo know, Josh Hart, you got to come over. I mean, and that's needed because they don't have Randall right now. So you don't have that other scoring option. But I think for him, he carries the crown of what a superstar is. He exemplifies that in the way he plays. It's not even just with the points. And I agree with Tony. When you play in such a huge market as New York is, to me, he surpassed with commercially what Randall has done because you didn't really see Randall in commercials. You didn't see Randall on Hot Ones eating hot wings, and seeing Brunson with Monica McNutt doing a DoorDash sponsored interview, getting his own bobblehead. I mean, it's just the littlest things. He just had something else that the Knicks posted with him walking Kona, his dog. It was like a 2 minute video, but listen, people want to see it because as a superstar, just like how we talk about other players, like when Dame was on Portland, Portland wasn't the greatest team, but it was Dame being so good as he is, his
Right.
name, people talk about him because of the way he plays. And I think that's what happened with Jalen Brunson. And especially being in New York, more spotlight has turned to him. And I think with this being his team and he's not playing under someone like Luca, it's opened up the floodgates even more. So I think that as a superstar, it's not even just what he's done, but he's had a lot of spotlight not on just him. His game has grown, and I think that's another thing that speaks a lot about him. He could have came here and been just average and gave you 20, maybe 17 some night, but the fact that he's surpassed and he's showing you like he has more in his bag to offer, that's what a superstar does. There's games where I've seen where Jalen Brunson will go back to Chicago. He was off that first half. But when you come in the second half and you find your footing and you do everything in your power to make sure that team gets that win, that's what a superstar does. When you ready to take that ball at the end of the game as he did and took that, even though it rimmed in and out, it's the little things that he do, and that's what superstars do. They are commanding the ball and they do what they need to do. And I agree with you on what you were touching on earlier, how people would say in the beginning of the season, middle of the season, oh, Brunson's hogging the ball, he takes too many shots. But I think people fail to realize is that who's the other option? And I heard you guys kind of getting on this on Tony's show earlier. Like sometimes I think with Brunson as a superstar, you have to know when to just go ahead and just do it and take action and just do it. And he does just that. It's not that he doesn't trust passing it to DiVincenzo for the last shot or giving it to OG for the last dunk or the last shot, but as a superstar, you trust the process and you trust what you could do, and you're going to go after doing just that. And I love that about him. And that's what a superstar does.
Yeah. And also not being afraid to be the hero or the GOAT.
Right.
There's a responsibility with taking that last shot, whether it goes in or not. And you're able to, you understand that responsibility and you accept it. So yeah,
Can
good
I
point.
just
Yeah.
add something about Randall and it's a credit to him when he did get his opportunity as far as like for the commercial success. For the most part, he pulled his son right there with him, and I felt like his son was kind of like the superstar in a sense. You know what I mean? Like Randall he didn't try to go grab it. He was like, I'm bringing my little man with me, and I think that kind of worked a little, and it kind of hindered him as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jeff.
Well, to me, a superstar is someone who is able to maintain grace when pressure is at its zenith.
Yeah.
You know,
Great
you
point.
you you have someone in Brunson where it doesn't matter the stakes, the stage. This guy is cool as the other side of the pillow, man. He is just
Shout out to
he
Stuart Scott. May he continue
yeah.
to push
Shout
people.
out to Stewart. You bet. Amen. R.I.P. brother. But yeah, he is so good and just so smooth and so cool. But I also think what makes him a superstar, and I don't think that this is necessarily, uh, I don't think it's necessary to be a superstar, but I think that he's done it in this case and it makes him more of a superstar, is I think he's kind of revolutionized the sport
Oh wow.
because nobody ever has done what he does at his size. His footwork, his ability to get to his spots, his ability to make shots over big players, over double teams at a highly efficient clip for a 6'2 guard, it has never been seen at this level in the history of the sport. And when you're doing something that hasn't been seen in the history of the sport, to me, that's revolutionary. That's like um, that's like Steph Curry's 3-point shot from he steps over the half court line and he's in range. You know, that revolutionized the sport because you had to guard him different. You had to do things different. And with Jalen, you just have to do things different because it kind of reminds me when you hear him talk. I read Bernard King's book, and he talked about how he divided the court into like different zones, almost like a grid, and he knew which spots on the grid were his hot spots. And so he always worked to get in position where he would have that hot spot. And so he would just get to that spot and he knew it was going in because he knew those were the shots he practiced. That was his bread and butter. And that's a guy who, you know, back-to-back 50-point games in the Texas Triangle back in the day. For those of you who don't remember, you look it up on YouTube. He was something else. But, you know, he had a lot more size, a lot more ability to punish, a lot more, you know what I mean? Brunson is small. He's 6'2", but he kills you in the post. I mean, he's 6'2". He can go under a screen. It doesn't matter how you play the screen and roll, you're playing it wrong. He can pop out. He can use the screen, get to the basket. He can just throw it to the roller. He can do all of those things. And it's just like, he's just a problem. And he's a problem like nobody in the NBA has seen before. And I think that's one of the reasons why some of his doubters don't really understand what we've got here, because he's doing something that nobody's ever done before. And it's a little bit incomprehensible if you think about it.
Yeah. And you know what, Jeff? Like, people are saying in the chat, Iverson, but Brunson doesn't have the athletic ability of Iverson. He doesn't have the quickness of Iverson. And so you make a good point in terms of if he continues doing what he's doing over the next few years, and there's no reason to believe he won't, he can change the game. Think about how many kids now watching him and be like, you know what? This guy's not fast. This guy, I mean, he's strong, but he's not fast. He's not, you know, he's not necessarily quick. He doesn't have a lot of athleticism, but he's killing like an Embiid, like a Giannis, like a Tatum, like a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Yeah, you're right. If he's able to do that, you're right. It does change the game. It does let people know, young players know, yeah, I could be just as good, you know? Wow. Yeah. So I'm thinking of changing the game, not necessarily in terms of Steph Curry, in terms of changing how the game is played, but just in terms of opening up doors and opening up possibilities, you know, for different types of point guards to believe that, yeah, I can come into the NBA. And people talk about that with Iverson. You hear these kids, you know, when they get into the league, they talk about, I watched so and so, and that made me believe that I can do it too. Like, that's what Brunson, you know, that's what Brunson is doing right now.
And I hesitate with Iverson because Iverson was one of one. I mean, he was a similar size, but their games were just so different. Iverson's game was just so much more built on just brute force and power. And I mean, it sounds ridiculous because he was not big, but like, you did not get in that man's way. Even if you're Michael Jordan, you don't get in that man's way. I mean, he was just like incredible in a completely different way. So
Right.
so I consider Allen Iverson one of one, but I also consider Jalen Brunson one of one.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Shout out to Paris Duggar. Appreciate the super chat. Hey, NBA, we baby kids. We don't die, we multiply. Oh, yeah, that's a great point. In your opinion, where should Jalen Brunson be in NBA MVP voting? Where do you think he should be? Tony, Jeff, then Lady in the Chef.
Top 3.
Oh, you know what I wanted to do? I'm sorry, Tony, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
I
you good.
wanted to get to some of these comments that I starred, and some of them was from earlier in the show. Kerry Cox, appreciate you. Didn't I say to trade for OG Anunoby 2 years ago? Absolutely, you did say that. Coach, appreciate you always rocking with us. Brunson was great last year. This year, better. How? The man is amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Um, Greg, you can win 50 games every season, but if you get knocked out every year in the first or second round, how good is that? This is what happened to Philly, right? This is what happened to Philly. This is what has happened to um, Boston before they, got to the finals. There's levels to it. This is our first year when it's not like we've won 50 games and got knocked out in the second round 4 years in a row. So I get what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. At some point, you got to win the chip. But look how long Boston has been championship contenders. They haven't won a chip. Look how long um, Philly has been championship contenders. They haven't won a chip. How long did it take Milwaukee? How many times was Milwaukee and Denver championship contenders before they finally won a chip? So there's levels to it. You just keep chugging away. A lot of things have to go your way, even when you have a championship contending roster. Things still have to fall your way.
But that goes
So
back to what Tony was saying earlier. This is only the fifth time in the last 50 years that the Knicks have been a second seed or better, I'm pretty sure. So this is not something that happens very often, but this is a team that almost all of their players, except for Boyan in their rotation, are in their primes or about to enter their primes. This is a team that has all of their draft picks, including 3 in the top 36 this year. I know it's a terrible draft, but that's for a different story. We have those picks though, and we have all of our picks moving forward. So yeah, we if and we don't even know that we're going to lose in the first or second round this year. That this team's destiny's not set yet. Let's not put limits on them. I mean, we can have that conversation if we lose to Philly in 6 games. Then we can revisit that conversation. But even at that point, what I'll say is this: we're building, we're climbing. And we faced all kinds of adversity this year, and we had one of our best seasons in history. And again, Brunson is entering his prime. Randall, if he comes back healthy, in his prime. All of these guys are just moving up at a good age with good experience, and then we still have the chips if we feel like we need it to make another move to add that one last piece. That's how you get from that first or second round defeat to that next level where you're, as Queen said earlier, bona fide championship contenders and a long-term sustainable winner, which is what you want, Craig, and what all of us want.
yeah. There's levels, there's levels to it. We'll see. Right now we're at the beginning of the journey. These teams, Milwaukee, Boston, Denver, they've been on this journey for a while trying to secure a championship. We're just on the first step. So we'll see what the process is for us, because there is a process. But I'm pretty confident, with Brunson, leading the way. Ooh, unmaddenable. I don't know if I got that right. I really wish we were more aggressive at the deadline. Another scorer would have helped. JB, like DeRozan, Murray, or Clarkson. He ain't feeling Burks. I hear you. All right, Tone. We'll get to the rest of the comments later.
The MVP.
Yeah, where do you think he should rank in the MVP voting?
Top three for me. I give SGA the edge. He would be my number one. Considering age, talent around him, expectation coming into the season, all those type of things, and the numbers. We've seen what he's capable of against us, and what he's been doing all year long. Number one in the West. I think all that stuff means something. I edged him over Jokic because they squeaked out that number one seed. Took the last game of the year to do it, but Jokic was my number two, even though his numbers aren't as good as maybe previous MVP years. The fact that he's still doing those numbers and Still number 2 in the West. Still looks like he's putting no effort. What you say, Queen? He rose out of bed, he rose on the court, does his thing, go back to watch the horses. You know what I mean? Like it's just effortless. But then I give Brunson the edge over Luka. And my reasoning for edging him over Luka is Luka has a bona fide star right there next to him. Right? You know what I mean? Luka's been phenomenal, but so has Brunson. And Brunson's been doing it through adversity. Brunson's been doing it without his number 2 guy. Brunson's been doing it with, really not anybody who's a solidified number 2 guy. Everybody else has stepped up, but none of these guys are all NBA. All, they're not top tier compared to the other guys who have a number 2 option. Some guys got number 3 options. And that's why guys like Tatum are lower on the totem pole. Complete team, number 2, number 3, number 4. Like he got options all around him, and his numbers are down. So yeah, I don't think you could. I give him the edge over Luka, but I still say Jokic and SGA, could beat him out. So top 3.
Okay, Jeff.
Well, I'm a homer. I'm putting him number 1. And the reason I'm putting him number 1 is that he's the only starter left from our starting 5 game 1.
Really?
The entire starting lineup. Think about the starting lineup he started with.
RJ
Mitchell Robinson was in there. Julius Randle was there. Quentin Grimes was there. And so you had all of those, and RJ Barrett. And all those guys are gone. And it doesn't matter what permutation of players you've had. It doesn't matter who else you've taken away from the equation. The one constant has been number 11. Not only that, but I think what sets him apart, and if SGA's numbers are equivalent to this, I'll change my mind. I'm interested in Jokic's too. But the Knicks are the very best offense in the NBA when Jalen Brunson is on the court, and they're the absolute worst offense in the NBA when he's not. And if that's not a testament to him being the most valuable player in the league, I don't know what is. He's off the charts good. His plus minus is out of this world. And he's, his defense has ratcheted up this year. I don't think last year he played defense at a high enough level to earn that consideration. But this year, I think, he's always going to be undersized, but he draws more charges than almost everybody in the league. He's willing to sacrifice his body. He does all of the little things. He scores, and he scores at an unheard of, except for Steph Curry, efficiency. He's a difficult shot maker and taker, and he can shoot it from outside. And the other thing is that since Julius got hurt, remember, Julius was allowing him to get 2 or 3, maybe even 4 wide open catch and shoot looks per game from 3. Like a bunch of them. It may not be that, but a bunch of wide open, because he would draw that gravity and that double team, and they just kick it out to Jalen, and that's stealing, right? That's free money for him from out there. That's an easy shot for him. And he got that taken away from him. And guess what? His points per game went up.
Right.
His points per game went up, and his 3-point shooting percentage is still pretty good. So I don't think anybody else in the league has had to go through what he's had to go through. I don't think anybody else in the league has performed up to his standard in terms of 30-point games and 40-point games with less help. So to me, that makes him the most valuable player in the league.
He changed my mind. I concede. Brunson's number 1.
Yeah. I want to say oh man. Oh, here it is. Knicks 100, and then I'll get to Lady and the Chef. Knicks 100 a GM. Come on now. Brunson is not MVP. He won none of them games without OG. Listen, how many games has Tatum won without Jalen Brown? How many games have the Joker won without his teammates? MVP doesn't mean you're doing it by yourself. I mean, you can't do it by yourself. When Embiid won MVP, did he do it by himself? Did the Joker do it by himself? Of course, you're gonna have teammates that help you. And OG played didn't play a lot of games. So let's not act like, OG was there from the beginning and he was the number 2 and he did. I mean, come on. I mean, OG has been great since he's been here, but he's not the reason Jalen Brunson is balling. You know what I mean? Um, I'm with Jeff. I was gonna put him, I would say 2 behind SGA, because SGA, that team finished first. And that team last year was in the play-in, I believe, if they made the playoffs at all. But I believe they were in the play-in. And to go from play-in to the number 1 team in the Western Conference, like, that is impressive, even though I think it came down to the last day. But the same for us to get the number 2 seed. It came down to the last day. But Jeff, I kind of agree with you. That team was intact from the beginning. Brunson has had to do some Matrix type, um, in terms of reinventing himself throughout the season. His role changing, who he's playing with is changing. Then they trading, and the guys they get in, you're not getting what you. And then some guys are one dimensional. They play defense, they can't score, and he just keeps chugging along, doing what he does, regardless. And before I get it to Lady and the Chef, that's also a definition of a superstar for me. That when the lights are the brightest, you still do what you do. I remember watching those Lakers Celtics series with Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. It seemed like they played in the NBA Finals year after year in the 80s. I know Philly was in there a few times. And one of the things that I was impressed with was they looked like they were still in the regular season. Like it was like they was just playing their game. It didn't look like it was hard for them or anything. And there was some other players that looked like, all right, they were struggling, like really trying to bring their game up a level. But for Magic and Larry, the lights couldn't get bright enough to impact their game at all. And that's what I'm seeing. And when you think about the superstars in this league, it's like they perform regardless. And that's what we have in Jalen Brunson. Now, some people will say, well, what about the playoffs? Keep in mind, people consider Embiid a superstar. He's never been to the Eastern Conference Finals. People consider Tatum a superstar, and he's been to the finals a few times, and he still has that knock on him in terms of coming through in the clutch. So let's not have higher expectations of Brunson in the playoffs than we have of these other guys who really haven't made their mark in the playoffs as yet. But Lady and the Chef, just in your opinion, where should he rank in the MVP voting?
I actually have my ranking pretty similar to Tony's, if not the same. I think it should be SGA first, Jokic, and then Brunson. I just think it's a shame, though, that I've read so many different articles and there's all these different predictions of who should be MVP, who should be most improved, defensive player of the year, and like none of them have Jalen Brunson in the conversation. And I was telling Diva Loxus, I said the issue with that is that I think a lot of people still don't have this respect with the Knicks, and there's this like underlying disrespect that's there with the Knicks, because I think because the Knicks haven't won or gone further than a first, second round in many years, the Knicks are looked at as a joke, unfortunately. And then you have a lot of people, some people who's actually in the chat currently, live right now, who are being very negative as well. But I just think that Brunson, to me, I think he really should be right behind SGA. And it's no knock on Jokic. I think his numbers are phenomenal. He's won it already 3 times. And I don't want to come off like I'm saying, oh, this guy's already won it 2, 3 times. Like, give it to somebody else. I think you have to earn it and be worthy of it and to get the award, whatever that may be in the NBA, right? But I think that, but the fact that Brunson is not in the conversation is really sad. But I like him being the underdog because I think he's going to prove them a lot of people wrong, especially in the playoffs. But to count him out and what he's done with this team and carried the team with no help, SGA had help. He has help on OKC. He has that second, third option on that team. The same thing with Jokic. He has help on Denver. But I think that um, I think the Knicks, it's important that going back to that ceiling, it has to be there this year. And I think a lot of people do have the Knicks counted out being a one and done first round knockout. A lot of people don't count the Knicks even going past the second round. But I
Second,
think
first. Some people don't even see
no,
us.
and that's what I said. I said the first round. I said let alone even the second round. A lot of people have the Knicks as a one and done for the first round. Um, to be honest, I think even if Randall was here and healthy, I think the narrative would still be the same. To be honest, it wouldn't change. They would just be like, oh, Miami's gonna knock them down. Philly's gonna knock them out. They're not gonna get past Boston. They're not gonna get past Milwaukee. And I think the narrative around the conversation of MVPs go to you hear the same names. It's Giannis, it's Jokic. Now you hear SGA because his game has grown. I really like what I'm seeing from him, but I
Oh,
just think the fact that they count out Brunson is just really rude. It's disrespectful. But like I said, I think that he's going to prove a lot of people wrong. I think this rest that we have this week is great. And I don't think the Knicks are necessarily, I just need them to be focused on their health and come out ready. Um, and the accolades will come. But I think right now it's just focusing on it game by game and being ready for the first round of the playoffs and taking it game by game within that series. But to me, I have Brunson at like that second option for MVP for sure.
yeah. Shout out to Miguel P. Appreciate you. Appreciate the super chat. Extrapolate the wins, and you will see that if the Knicks had been healthy, we would have challenged Boston for the number one seed at the end of the year. I mean, if that 15-2 was real, yeah, yeah, I think the Knicks would have been right there. Um, I just want to move this along, but I just want to. I know we talked about this. Kendrick Perkins, ESPN analyst. It's obvious, and so he's talking about the halftime show on TNT when the Knicks was just waxing Boston's, what,
Hmm.
and asking Kenny and asking Charles Barkley, what have you, and their responses was pretty ho hum. They're not playing hard. I mean, it could be possible. Um, Shout out to Knicks Nation. He put this on Twitter. So what Perkins said on during the interview is obvious they don't watch basketball. They just watch the Knicks when they're on TNT. But to Brunson, as we're talking about Brunson, Kendrick Perkins was on the Brunson train early last year. He saw something in Brunson that even for myself, it took me a while to say he was a star and he was a superstar. But Kendrick Perkins, saw that right away. And one of the things he also said recently is that Brunson, in any series the Knicks play, could be the best player on the floor. Your thoughts on that briefly before we move on to the next segment. Lady in the Shaft, we'll start with you.
Yeah. I mean, I heard him. He did an interview earlier. I don't know if that was from today, but he did do an interview earlier on ESPN. I know they typically interview Perkins to ask him questions about the Knicks. I just think it's funny how Stephen A is now like orange and blue skies and He's saying that with Shannon on ESPN. I'm like, dude, he wasn't even saying that earlier, but he still has the Knicks out. He's saying they're gonna make noise, but whatever. Um, but no, I agree with Perks. I think that in a series in the playoffs, Brunson will be the best player on the floor. I think that he's up there with like your Giannis's, your Jokic, your SGAs. He's gonna outperform no matter what. The lights are not too bright or too the MSG is not too big for Brunson. And I think that in that first round, Brunson's gonna do everything in his power to make sure that we get out of that first round, no matter what. Um, and I think the same thing applies for the second round. I just think it matters for the supporting cast to be there to help him out. But I think that, unfortunately, even when the Knicks play in the first round, the narrative is still going to be about the other team. So whether that's Philly or Miami, they're going to be getting spoken about more than the Knicks. And then you're going to have some things that the Knicks do that whoever's hosting the game on that night are going to be talking about. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles with New York, the Knicks.
Yeah. Anybody else before we?
Well, the thing that you have to remember about the TNT crew is Charles Barkley hates the Knicks because we used to stomp him every time he played us in the postseason when he was in Philly. Shaq hates the Knicks for similar reasons. I mean, he had better success, but he played for Orlando and we were arch rivals, so he can't stand our organization. Kenny Smith played against us in the finals. He's never had any love for the Knicks. So why would we expect them to say anything else other than, oh, if they played Indiana, they would lose to them, without backing it up with any actual facts or data or anything besides, I had a feeling. So from that standpoint, but you know what? I don't let that stuff bother me because guess what? The only way to shut them up is to win.
Right.
If you want to shut them up, beat them up. You got to win. And are we going to have our work cut out for us? Yeah, because guess what? All top 8 teams in this Eastern Conference are good. Like the playoffs in the East is as tough or tougher than it's ever been, even if we did win 50 games.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Who is your player of the year for the Knicks not named Jalen Brunson? And you don't have to pick DiVincenzo, Hard, or Josh Hart. You could pick anybody. But who's the player of the year for the Knicks not named Jalen Brunson? Jeff?
Oh, that's such a great question. Oh, wow. Let me think about that for a second.
You want us to
Player
come
of the
back or
year?
you good?
No, I'm good. I'm good. I think I have to go with Josh Hart. I think I have to go with Josh Hart because here's a guy who through the first 20 games, everyone was saying, "How could we be paying him all this money? This guy's a scrub. What's he doing?" And this and that and the third. And the guy plays over 40 minutes every night for over a month. It felt like. And since January, I think he had 6 triple doubles or something like that, which the Knicks never get a triple double, so that's incredible in and of itself. You know, I know you're going to see a lot of OG, and when he's healthy, it's hard to argue because he was 20 and we're 20-3 with him in the lineup, but that's still, you've got all those other games where he wasn't here and he wasn't on the team, and Josh Hart was there from the beginning, and I just think that his contribution and what he brings is so uh, is so glaring, because think about this, in the game where he got kicked out, for literally kicked out, I guess, in the game he got kicked out, OG was playing and the Knicks lost. So Hart and OG is part of that combination that makes him so good. So I look, there's so many good answers that to this question. I think Isaiah Hartenstein is very deserving. The guy has been incredible. DiVincenzo has been everything we could have asked for and more. You know, we wouldn't have 50 wins without Precious Achua, believe it or not. I mean, how many? He spent a month as our 40-minute a game player because Hartenstein was on a limited restriction and all of our other bigs were dead. And so, this is truly a team. And so it's difficult for me to pick just one. But if I had to go with just one, I'm going to err on the side of DJ Shuttle and go with Josh Hart.
All right. All right. Tony?
I'm gonna double down with my OG take from earlier. It's hard to argue with the record of 21-3, I think, including last night's win.
Mhm.
And then just the immediate impact when he got here. You know what I mean? It was seamless. There was no transition period. You know what I mean? Like he came in and just played his game and fit like a glove. So yeah, I'm gonna stick with OG. But like Jeff said, you could name 5 different players and not be wrong.
Yeah. Lady in the Shop?
For me, it's definitely iHeart. I think our Isaiah Hartenstein, he didn't play against Brooklyn, and he was out resting, which initially I didn't like the choice to have him out rested, but I understood it. Mitch needs to find his legs and his footing. He's still trying to get his stamina back. And he's a little out of shape still, so I understood that, and I thought Mitch played a really good game anyway. But the difference is that I noticed when Sims started that game, and I immediately noticed, not because Sims was in the game, but there was a difference with the offense. It's very stagnant when Isaiah Hartenstein isn't on the floor. And I remember I called Diva Locks and she was out and about. But I said, there's a difference when he's not on the floor. Like people underestimate what he does because he's able to get to that middle. First of all, he does a hell of a job setting good screens. And I think while Sims sets good screens, they're not to the degree of where Isaiah Hartenstein and Mitch sets them. They're just not that crisp yet to like he got to get them a little bit better. And this is not me nitpicking this. If you really watch, they're too quick. He's not planted there long enough to give that solid screen and let the body, the defender, fall into his chest and then he rolls away. So there's a difference with the screen. But Isaiah Hartenstein, a lot of times, this is how Jalen Brunson's able to get the shots off that he wants. He sets great screens for him at the top of the be able to score, get the shots that he wants. Then he's able to get to the middle. You need me to stop? Oh, oh. He's able to get to the middle, right? And then he's able to throw that ball out to whoever's on a perimeter or feed it off to, Brunson or Josh Hart or DiVincenzo maybe cut into the basket. So he does really well with that. But I think that he's, to me, player of the year. He did a tremendous job blocking the ball, getting us several blocks, being a great. When we played Philly each time, he killed Philly. When we played, who was it? The Timberwolves. And Rudy couldn't have his way against him. I mean, just so many players. Now against Chicago, against Vucevic, I didn't think he played great defense against him. Vucevic had his way. He did whatever he wanted. And there are some players where I think Hartenstein. It's unfortunate because I think the Knicks get tied into this, and I think this is something they have to watch out for in the playoffs, where this happens to Mitch and Hartenstein a lot. The offense will set the screen, and that one guy now he gets the screen. So now the screener is able to roll off, and now Hartenstein or Mitch have to decide: do I guard the guard who's coming to the basket, and they're trying to any mini mighty mo, and now the team gets that easy layup most times because Hartenstein and Mitch is trying to figure out, well, do I guard him because they're worried about their man who's right behind them who's going to get the easy pass. And that's something that I think that we have to watch out for moving into the first round of the playoffs. But I think Hartenstein has done a fantastic job this year. Just the versatility between the passing, the confidence in his passing, the rebounding. His defensive presence is not as strong as Mitch, But I think defensively, he's held his own, and he stepped up. Next man up, he stepped up when Mitch went down. I mean, the fact that he also stayed healthy and was able to play as many games as he was able to play, that speaks volumes alone, and his energy is infectious. I think that what he's done, but when he's on the floor, he can make those passes, which is nice. He's not afraid to move his feet, dribble the ball a little bit if he needs to. I just wish he would turn around more and face the basket. And I wish he can shoot those mid-range shots from the corner of the of the foul line. It would be nice for him to give us those little mid-range shots. But otherwise, I definitely, for me, he's my player of the year for sure. I think he's done a really good job holding his own.
I think that's a great choice, and I think with iHeart and the problem that you were mentioning with iHeart and Mitch, I think that OG helps that quite a bit because he can kind of guard 1.5 guys, and
Right.
so I mean it depends on where the screen is coming from, but if it's on Anunoby's side of the floor, I think that tends to mitigate that because I noticed that when iHeart and OG were playing together defensively, you saw especially the advanced stats love the job that Hartenstein does in those scenarios. And I think a lot of that is due exactly because he can stay in his position. He doesn't have to do the guess, which guy do I take? He
Right.
knows, okay, I'm just going to go with the big because I know that OG is going to take care of the small. And so he doesn't have to worry about that. And so
Right.
I really feel like and correct me if I'm wrong because you guys watch as many of you guys actually get to watch more of the games than I do. A lot of times I have to follow on my phone, but it really seems like the lineup with Josh Hart, DiVincenzo, Brunson, iHeart, and OG, when those five are on the floor together, the defense is fantastic.
Hmm.
That's my eye test. Is that synergistic with what you guys are seeing on the floor?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the defense is it's really strong. I think because one thing that I noticed with OG and DiVincenzo, they do well. They see the man, see the ball very well, and they're able to they have very active hands and feet. A lot of times you'll just see them swat that ball away, and they're able to, go for that fast break point so well. And even like Josh Hart, he's able to read when passes are coming across the court and grab them and go across the court. But that particular five, yes, the defense is spot on.
Catch me up a little bit. Did the topic change a little?
Well, she had just mentioned how her player was Isaiah Hartenstein, and I was just asking if they noticed that 5-man. You guys get to see more of the games than I do, but from what I've seen and what I can tell, it really looks like that lineup when you have iHeart and Josh Hart and OG and DiVincenzo and Brunson on the floor together, that they really seem to be locked down defensively and just like shut the door on you, like just like an impenetrable force. And they're good offensively too. They're incredible offense, but defensively, they're probably our best 5-man unit, which is
Right.
interesting to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Did everybody get a chance to answer? Tone, did you pick? Oh yeah, you did.
I picked OG.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't even know who to pick. I think just to do something different because I'm really high on iHeart and just how he's transformed our offense. I'm gonna go with DiVincenzo because it was DiVincenzo first and then iHeart second that transformed our offense when both of them were in there. What DiVincenzo has done at that 2 guard spot, playing next to Brunson, giving him somebody as an outlet, in terms of putting up shots, somebody that he trusts. There was times when Grimes was in the game where Brunson would see Grimes and would be like, I don't think that's the best choice in this particular situation. But when it comes to DiVincenzo, there's no hesitation, and part of it could be, they've played together. He trusts them, but part of them can see how he's playing on the court, so he's been phenomenal for us. One of the things I talked about at the end of last season ad nauseum, the Knicks have to get shooters. The Knicks have to get shooters. We need people who can make teams pay for double teaming Brunson and Randall. And DiVincenzo was that for us. And I know in the beginning of the season, like, because what that starting lineup with Grimes had a really good plus minus, if I'm not mistaken. And a lot of fans, and I get it, didn't want to change it. If it ain't broke, don't change it. But I was like, what about what's possible? I mean, yeah, this is good, but this can be even better, and just really feeling like Grimes just wasn't there yet in terms of his consistency. And that's no knock on him. He was a third year player with 2 years worth of game experience because of the injuries being put in a starting lineup on a team whose expectations just kind of changed, just like that. And, Debo had the experience, and I was banging the table for him. A lot of us was, and he just came in and he's been lights out. He's actually taken his game to another level. Not
14th
just
best season of all time as far as made threes.
look at that.
Shattered the all-time Knick record. So 14th best in the history of the league since the three-pointer was invented. That's incredible.
Yeah.
If I could, go ahead, Quinn.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Sure.
I just wanted to add to your point. Part of it, a lot of people in the chat, a lot of fans was complaining about Brunson not acknowledging or looking off Grimes, right? A lot of fans had the sentiment that Grimes and DiVincenzo are both shooting the same percentage from three. You know what I mean? Like, why are we trying to make this move? But one of the things that Grimes didn't do that DiVincenzo does, and we was asking for from Grimes, was just to be a little bit more aggressive, just to be a little bit more assertive. And we see that with DiVincenzo. Yeah, the numbers were the same as far as percentage, but he don't hesitate to put 10 threes up, 14 threes up in a game. Whether he's shooting that 40% or not in that particular game, the fact that he's aggressive and he's continuously going to be a threat no matter what. Right. If you think back to what Kevin Durant said that game where Grimes did get off, right? Paul, where Grimes had that good game. But what did Durant say in the post game? Like, he's only going to shoot that three. He's not going to put the ball on the ground. You know what I mean? Like, he's not going to be aggressive. That was that was a true sentiment throughout the league as far as like who Grimes was. No knock in comparison to who DiVincenzo is, but a lot, like you said, a lot of that did come down to experience, mindset. Grimes will get there.
He will get there.
He's just not there yet.
Yeah.
Well, as you said, DDV's ability to attack the closeout. Right, it's one thing.
Say, yes,
it's one thing to be able to shoot the three. It's the other thing to know that defender is coming. A little pump fake and go, and then you get to the rim. I mean, even in the Bulls game, he at the end of the overtime, I think he had that nice drive to the bucket and he missed, but he drew the attention, allowed Josh Hart to get the offensive rebound for the easy bucket that put us up 3. So, those are plays that you can see on the regular from him that you don't really see from Grimes, as Tony said, because he's not seasoned yet, right? There's a big difference between a 27-year-old who's in his prime and a 22-year-old kid, 23-year-old kid,
Right. Yeah, no doubt about it. Jeff, that's the point I was going to make. His ability to attack the closeout, the ability to shoot with range. And the fact that there's no fear in DiVincenzo. And then you also see him sometimes go coast to coast and lay it up. And then, and also be able to create, some for others. His game is growing actually throughout the season. So yeah, I would pick him, but Josh Hart, you can't go wrong with any one of those guys. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about everybody's favorite topic, but Lady and the Chef. Let's talk about Tom Thibodeau on playing in the last game. Um, I think the question was somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. Did he think about sitting Brunson in the overtime against
Mhm.
Chicago? And a shout out to Nick's video, SNY Nick's video. Competitors compete. It doesn't matter if it's a game, if it's one on one, if it's a shooting game, if it's dominoes, if it's some crazy podcast talking about Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart podcast. They compete, right? Um, Talk to me. Brunson has played lights out. Multiple players have stepped up in this season to, for us to get 50 wins and secure the number 2 seed in the Eastern um, Conference. Talk to me a little bit about Tom Thibodeau's role in the success of this season, or do you feel like it's more on the players and not the coach? Lady in the Chef, we'll start with you.
No, I think Tibbs, I think I mentioned this a few episodes ago. Um, I think that what was going on with Tibbs initially was, and Tony kind of touched on this earlier, was that Tibbs was working initially with who he had, and that the original roster who we had before Leon started making moves and getting rid of guys and making adjustments and changes and who was on the roster. I feel like in true fashion, Tibbs was probably being brought complaints like, we have a goal we're trying to meet and we're trying to get there. And Tibbs probably said, look, I'm working with who you have here. I only could take this team but so far because this is the group of guys that I have. There, I can't go that far with this group. I need a couple of pieces.
Mhm.
And I think Leon said, okay, I'm gonna give you what you need. Let me see what I can do. Let me go out there and make some things happen. So they did a phase one, got rid of quickly RJ, got OG here. And then they did the phase two with Burks and Bogdanovich, and that wasn't really the greatest. I didn't really care for that. Bogdanovich I'll take, but Burks not didn't care for him.
Mhm.
But I think that with the changes that was made to this team, I think Tibbs said, okay, I can work with these group of guys and bring this particular group, this roster somewhere and bring them further along. Um, because I think the Knicks going as far as they did last year, there's this pressure on Tibbs, to bring this team further along. I mean, you can't just go to the playoffs and then not go to the playoffs this year. It wasn't even just about the 50 wins. It was just like you can't. We're not trying to regress and go backwards. But I think what he's done with this group, considering all the injuries and even pre-injury, you saw the changes with how he was implementing with the offense. We know Tibbs is defensive minded, and the defense has picked up a big deal as well. But I think what he's done offensively and seeing how players where they are on the floor, using Randall where he was, using Brunson where he was, just the way the flow of the offense looked more, there was a flow there. Whereas before Brunson got here, really Randall was running the point. And
Right.
that used to kill me to see Randall bringing up the ball. I was like, why is Randall bringing up the ball? He does not need to be bringing up the ball. But then when I looked back, I said there was no one else to bring up the ball. So that's why Randall was bringing up the damn ball all the time. And when Randall was bringing up the ball, the offense looked horrible with the Knicks. Randall had to do everything because there was really no other option to go to. But once we got Brunson here and just seeing the way the offense flows and Tibbs has guys moving and it just seems more like the team is actually when Tibbs calls a play, they're running a play.
Right.
Before it didn't look like they were actually Tibbs was yelling out whatever he was yelling. It didn't seem like guys was doing it. They just seemed like they were just doing whatever just to before the shot clock went out. But I think it speaks volumes for Tibbs and what he's done. And I think there's still been some times where I've questioned Tibbs as far as like certain rotations that he didn't do or substitutions in certain games, and I'm like, well, why you got this player? He's so sure. Why is he guarding him at the last second shot? And again, there's a method to his madness and why Tibbs does what he does. This is why he gets paid the big bucks. But I think that Tibbs has done a great job considering again, he has the roster, but dealing with injuries and for him to carry this team on. And Tibbs is a really good coach because even if you were watching that Chicago game and some of the games before that, and especially in that Chicago game, if you really look at when the camera goes to Tibbs, he's so annoyed and frustrated with the players because he's like, "Are you freaking kidding me?" Like literally is what he's saying because he's like, "Jesus," and he crosses his arm because he's like, "How do you make these mistakes?" It's like we're not rookies. This is not the G League. Wake the F up. What are
Right.
we doing out there? You know, but he still keeps composing us. There's things that he says. I mean, and even I questioned one time they had him mic'd up a few games ago. And he said the offense isn't there, but he said, let's get our defense there. Let's pick up the defense. And the Knicks went out and played. I said, wow, that worked. I mean, I know it could work, but I was just impressed because I said, that's all it took for him. And Tibbs sat down in his chair. He looked, winded and mouth was dry. And he said, the offense isn't there. But he said, let's get the defense going. He said, get the defense going, men. Let's go. He said, you're not playing any defense. And the Knicks went out and turned that game around. And I was so impressed by that because I said, it's something he knows what he's doing, but I think he's carried this team very, very far this season, considering he's very limited to who he has out there as far as options for playmakers, So kudos to Tibbs, for doing what he's done. And I think Tibbs has done a great job so far in his tenure here as a Knicks head coach.
Yeah, I was gonna. Oh, go ahead. Um, Jeff, then Tony.
Well, I think it starts with Tibbs because when Leon Rose hired Tom Thibodeau, uh, he was setting a culture, right? A culture that was going to make stability the bar, right? Just the level of effort, the level of effort being consistent and hard, and all of this stuff started in the off season, right? He tells these guys, get your bodies ready because you're going to have to play 40 minutes a night for several nights in a row, right? No, he tells them that ahead of time. Like he says, you've got to get yourself in condition because this is a long season. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. You're going to get your time. You've got to be ready. Nobody has Precious Achua penciled into the top 9 in the team, but he played big time minutes for a month and was really good. Deuce McBride stepped into the starting lineup, and we discovered it looks pretty darn good when he and Jalen Brunson are on the floor at the same time, right? So all of these things, but it starts with a baseline of competence, and that's what Tom Thibodeau brings to the table first and foremost, but also the mindset that the Knicks have. There was no way he was going to sit Jalen Brunson in the overtime. That's not what we do. That may be what the Cleveland Cavaliers do. That may be what the Milwaukee Bucks do. But that isn't what these New York Knicks do. We play every minute of every game like it's the game 7 of the NBA Finals. and that's to our coach's credit. We don't always win, but you know what? You can count on one hand the number of teams that we lost to that were under 500 this year. And 2 of those you could say, were stolen from us by the officials in San Antonio and Houston. Not that they should have gotten to that, but think about all of the under 500 teams that there are in the league, and you lost 5 of those games. That means you take care of business. That means you stand on business. That means that you take every game seriously. You're not underestimating your opponent. You're respecting the game. On Sunday, the Knicks respected the game. They said, we don't care who we get in the next round. We don't care who it is. We feel like if we do what Coach Thibodeau tells us and we execute the game plan, that we're going to win because we have confidence in each other and we have confidence in him. And we know that we've seen it. We saw January when everybody was doing their job, playing their role, and we were rolling over people like a Sherman tank. And so they've seen it. They know that it works. They have trust in the system. They know that they know what they need to do. And did they get pushed outside of their comfort zone sometimes? Yeah, but guess what? That's needed too, because now Julius isn't here for the playoffs. You're going to have to be outside your comfort zone. If you've never been there before, if you're not in those situations, it's a lot harder to react and respond appropriately and execute the game plan. So I think he did a phenomenal job. I think he's the tone setter. I think that his defensive philosophy permeates everything that we do. And it's the reason why OG fit in seamlessly, because he just was the perfect skeleton key that we needed to unlock an elite defense. And guess what? Our star players, even Julius Randle, buy in. They buy into what he's telling them. And that's massive. Like, you don't see a lot of infighting among the Knicks. It's just like whoever gets the minutes, and you get in and you do your job. I mean, Mitchell Robinson got his starting spot taken from him by Isaiah Hartenstein because Hartenstein outplayed him when he was hurt, and he deserved it. You don't see Mitch yapping about that. A lot of teams do that. This team doesn't. It's just like, okay, I'm going to go in my role and I'm going to be the best I can be. And there's going to be a time when I'm called upon and I'm going to have to start and step in and play well. And that was the Nets game. And we had a 37% free throw shooter go 4 for 6 from the line down the stretch, and that won us the game. Right. That's Coach Thibodeau.
Yeah. Tony, just your thoughts on how much of our success do you think has to do with Tom Thibodeau, or do you think it's just mostly the players?
No, it's like I said earlier, it started with Thibodeau. It started some years ago when we got Thibodeau. So I think we needed his type of players. He needed his type of players to kind of maximize. But even prior to Tibbs, I mean, he's been overachieving, if you know what I mean, in a sense. You know what I mean? He's been
well, he got this cast on players, right?
Yeah. So I think it we're still not a finished product, but it started with him, you know what I mean? And you can argue that we're still overachieving considering all the adversity that we've gone through and us being at 50 wins still, being the second seed. So I don't know what like percentage I would put on it, but it starts with him. You know what I mean? It starts with him. He's the culture starter, and then you know what I mean. You get the guys around him to work with him and believe in him, and this is where we're at.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think he's a big part of where we are as an organization and where this team is, because they really believe in what he's saying. I mean, think about it. Randall went down. Mitch went down first, like we talked about in the beginning. Randall went down second. If it's not your coach, trying to help you stay focused, you can easily start thinking that the season is over. You can easily start thinking that this season is lost. We came in with high expectations. We lost Randall. We lost Mitch. What are we gonna do? And the Knicks just kept carrying water and chopping wood, as Emmanuel quickly said, just kept doing their job day in and day out. And a lot of that has to do with Tom Thibodeau. And to your point, Tone, that didn't just start this year. He brought that with him when he came, because you have to start developing championship habits well before you are a championship team. And when he came, he started laying down the tracks. He started laying down the culture from which a championship team was going to be built. So it wasn't like he had to try to convince them, listen, stay focused. We can still do it. Next man up. They already had that mentality for years before this season. And the players he brought in had that from wherever they came from, so it was an easy buy-in for them, so you can't separate really the players from the coach from the players, because it's the coach that's creating that environment, that's creating a culture to allow the players to be able to work. And I was going to ask, where he should be in coach of the year voting, but the OKC coach won coach of the year today. And I don't believe Tom Thibodeau received any votes. Um, the following head coaches also received votes: Bickerstaff from Cleveland, Chris Finch from Minnesota, Joe Mazzulla from Boston, and Jamal Mosley from the Orlando Magic. Tibbs was that horse that came in late. You know what I mean? Um, he had we been in a 2 seed all season, it may have been a different story, but no doubt, whether he received it or not, he did a great job for us. All right, let's just move on quickly to the playoff picture. The Knicks are in the second seed, as you could see on the right side, all the way at the bottom. We play the winner of the Philly, who's in the seventh seed. Miami's in the eighth seed. Whoever wins that one game becomes the seventh seed, and that's who the Knicks will play to play seven. Whoever loses will go on to play the winner of the ninth, 10th series game to see who becomes the eighth seed. So the Knicks will either play the Philadelphia 76ers or the Miami Heat Saturday, actually. So this is our possible playoff opponent: Philadelphia 76ers or the Miami Heat, Saturday, April 20th, the time to be determined.
Rumor is we're gonna be the first game, and usually we tend to be the first game. So that's probably 12 or 1 o'clock.
Okay. All right. So this is the question. Were the 50 wins and earning a second seed in the Eastern Conference worth it to the franchise? Worth it as far as changing the narrative of the New York Knicks nationally, even though it's a tougher playoff path? So 50 wins, the number 2 seed, was it worth it, even though our path may be a little harder than if we were the third, fourth, or fifth seed? Tone?
100% worth it. It's milestones. You know what I mean? You can't take away the 50 wins. It's gonna be there forever. You can't take away that 2 seed. We're gonna embark on that. I mean, we embarked on that. And then the road, in my opinion, was gonna be difficult no matter what matchup. I did like me personally, I said earlier, I didn't like Orlando as a matchup for us. I didn't really like the Pacers. Not because I think those teams are better. But one thing they did have is, nothing to lose playing against us. You know what I mean? They they don't have experience, but they also, it's like ignorance being bliss, right? They don't know no better than, they don't know to be scared. They don't know to fear us. They don't know what it really takes. So they come in there with nothing to lose.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said earlier, man, we win the games, or like Jeff said earlier, you win the games that's in front of you. You know what I mean? You don't play around with trying to manufacture matchups and things of that nature. To me, that's just bad karma. That's just, you know what I mean? That's, granted, like, we might like the matchups against some other teams, but we got to face whoever we got to face. And chances are, if we beat these teams, the next matchup is still going to be tough, right? So no matter what, you gotta get to the, you gotta go through the whoever's in front of you, and so yeah, I think it's worth it. We've been talking about 50 wins for about 2 months now. We can't complain about the results of the 50 wins now.
Yeah, no doubt. And shout out to Trav B. Ryan. He's absolutely right. This was the coaches poll. Like, so the NBA coaches, they have an association. So they named their coach of the year, and then the NBA will also name their coach of the year a little later. I always try to be on point. I know somebody said it in the chat that they named the coach of the year, so I went and looked for it really quick, and I didn't see that. Yes, this was by the coaches association. So shout out to Trav B. Ryan. I appreciate you. Jeff.
Well, to me, I think it goes back to mentality. What are you looking for long term, as in this whole playoff season for the Knicks? Are you just maybe wanting to get passed around? You think maybe you could sneak past one and the 4 or 5, and then you run into the Celtics in the second round? Or do you have a championship mentality where we want to have home court because we know that that's a big advantage in multiple rounds? And now the only time that we won't have that in the Eastern Conference playoffs is if we play Boston, and we won't see that till the finals. And I think Eastern Conference finals, and I
Right.
think everybody would take that. And so I think if you have a winner's mentality, if you have a championship mentality, you say, we want the second seed regardless of who that brings. And guess what? Does Philly have circumstances that, with Joel Embiid's health that kept him out for 30 plus games? Absolutely. Is Joel Embiid's knee still a little bit gawky? Yeah, it kind of is. So, we don't know if he's going to be, you assume that he's going to be healthy and MVP level, but they had to rest him in that Nets game. So, and he injured it again. And so you to me, you do the best you can in all your games. And we know the Knicks are going to give their best effort and put their best foot forward. And guess what? If you can't beat the Sixers or the Heat, you aren't going to win anything anyway.
It's
Right?
just
So,
window dressing to be able to say you got to the second round, right?
yeah. I mean, in other words, if this truly, the goal of this team is truly to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals and beyond, and trust me, everybody in that locker room has one thought, and it starts with a C and it ends with a P. And ain't nobody else thinking about anything different than championship. I promise you that. That's just their mentality. They believe they can win. They believe they have something special. And whether that's just an internal belief and whether that gets proved out in the long run, different conversation, different question. But as far as an internal belief, I think that this team thinks that when they play their best basketball, it doesn't matter. You can put the world all stars in front of them, and they don't care. They say, we play our game, we're going to win. That's their mentality, and it should be, because they're a very good basketball team.
Yeah, no doubt. Lady in the Chef, do you think the 50 wins and number 2 in the Eastern Conference was worth it, even if it means a tougher path in the playoffs?
Absolutely. I think the Knicks need to be able to prove that they can win 50 plus games. And to be honest, the Knicks really would have won around, even with all the injuries, at least 55, 56. There was a couple of like easy chippers that we let get away from us. So, could we have been in first? Maybe not, but definitely for sure that second, and we secured it. I also think though that the Eastern Conference this year wasn't as strong as the West. But again, I think the Knicks could have also broke away and gave themselves some room by winning more, even if that meant landing in the second as they did, but had maybe 55, 56 wins. But I think the Knicks did the right thing. I don't think losing games or trying to sit players out so that we lose, so we face, a Cleveland would have been better off for us. Sure, we know we can beat a team like Cleveland or Indiana, maybe more is in our favor. But if you
Mhm.
look at what the Knicks did against Philly throughout the season, the Knicks were very dominant against them, even with one of the games with Embiid in the game. Now I heard you say early on Tony's show, Miami, yes, they're just mentally tougher when it comes to the playoff season, and I agree. And they're more physical and aggressive, a little bit violent for some of them. Bam, he got that Draymond energy. He wants to come out and snap a back or a finger or whatever. But I think that the Knicks have to this to me, this postseason is a good challenge for the Knicks to get better when it comes to the postseason. So I think the Knicks have to look at it, and Knicks fans, we have to look at it from that standpoint. It can't be about so whether we face off against Miami or Philly, I prefer Philly. But I think that this they need to utilize this as a challenge because kind of like what Jeff just said, you almost didn't beat Chicago. Let's all be real here because you almost didn't beat them because and then you almost didn't beat Brooklyn. Both teams came out defensively. Brooklyn came out strong offensively in the first half, and Chicago just played very well defense against the Knicks. And I think if you add that along with, lately the Knicks have been make one, miss one from the free throw line or not getting to the free throw line enough, turning the ball over. The Knicks are going to have to clean up a lot of that. So I think this rest will do the bodies good. But I think that when the Knicks do come ready for Saturday, they have to come out with high energy because while I think the Knicks did very well throughout the season, the playoffs is just a different ball game. And you can't come out low energy, lackluster energy. Like I said, just looking at that Chicago game, you should have probably broke away a little bit better in that game so you could have didn't have to worry about sweating or bringing it to overtime and having us all on our heels on the edge of our couches because we were like, what's going on here? Are they going to win this game? But I think that the Knicks, again, I feel like they could have won a few more games and been at maybe 55, 56 games. And some of the games, I think, and I know not every night teams are going to be on, but there was some games where defensively the Knicks weren't locked in. And there was some games offensively where, the Knicks just, there was no supporting cast help. Maybe Devo was off on his shots. We didn't have OG who was out maybe with the elbow out. So there was like, who do you go to? And I think for me, while I'm impressed with what they did in the regular season, for me, there's some underlying concerns for the postseason and what the Knicks can do and what would they be able to do.
Yeah. Great point. Is it Tony who didn't?
Tony.
No, I think he did say that it was. So Jeff, did you speak? Did you speak on it? You did
Yes,
as well. Yeah, I agree. And I get it. I hear people saying, "What does it mean that you win 50 games and you're the number 2 seed in the Eastern Conference and you lose in the first round?" I'm focusing on wins, instead of focusing on playoff success. I want playoff success as well, but for the franchise, thinking about where the Knicks have come from, 50 wins is almost like a marker that you're a good team. You hit the 50 win mark, it's like, okay, yeah, that's a good team. Number 2 in the Eastern Conference, that's a good team.
Home court advantage in the second round.
Yep. And it's almost it's a marker that we're on our way. It's a marker that we're on our way. You win 50 games with with the injuries and the disruptions, and you still win 50 games, you get to the second, 2 seed, that says something about you as a franchise. And I think it's also the beginning, hopefully, of changing the narrative around the Knicks. And this is how it happened for Golden State as well. Golden State, we may have some youngers in the chat. The Golden State was a mess for a very long time before they drafted Steph Curry and things turned around and the narrative began to change for them to championships or whatever. And the same thing for the Knicks. We've been in the doldrums for a very long time. And Brunson is here, and hopefully that changes, for us as well. So to me, if the path is tougher, the path is tougher. I think getting that 50 win was important. And I think the other thing, and you guys alluded to it, don't play with your food. You go out there, you win every game, let it fall where it may. If you're talking about being a championship contender, you're going to have to beat these teams anyway. And Philadelphia is legit because if Embiid didn't get hurt, they're a top 3 team. They're in the 7th spot because he got hurt. And even though he may look a little gimpy, if you didn't watch the games and you just went and looked at his stats for the 8 games he's been back, it's not a hell of a lot of difference. In those stats since he's been back. He's a load.
Speaking of which, would have been the front runner as the MVP had he not
Right.
got hurt.
Had he not got hurt, he was having one of those seasons too. He's a load, you know. Um, but and I'll answer it first, and then we'll go around really quick before we get out of here. My preference is to play Philadelphia.
Mm,
Even though they're a legit top 3 team in the Eastern Conference, like I just said, that just happened to fall to the 7th seed. I want to play them. Embiid has historically had issues getting his team out the second round of the playoffs. I'm not saying it's all his fault. Um, this is Maxi's first time being a second option on the team. Remember, Harden was the second option last year. Um, I'm not a big believer in Harris. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he can't have a good game, but I'm not a big, he doesn't put fear, in my heart. Neither does Buddy Hield, So I want Philadelphia. I'm not sure how many dogs they have over there, So Philadelphia would be my choice. But any preference?
Philly.
Philly, okay.
We played against them really well throughout the season. And Hartenstein had really strong games against them. So if you combine that with Mitch, I think the key is while Embiid had a good game against us in one of the games, I think the key is you got to make it a little tougher for Embiid and not allow him to get the ball at his shots, his points where he want to get them in the post. And I know that's better offense. He still can make the shots, but I think you got to make him work for it. And I think the other key against Philly is going to be speed because they're a quick team and they can get up and down that floor quick. So that's where you need, McBride, Hart, Devo. They're going to have to move them legs and them feet and get up and down that floor. But I think that Philly's a better matchup for us just because I think the Knicks match up well against them. Um, but either way, if we have to face Miami, I think the Knicks definitely need to go after getting revenge. But I would like to see the Knicks face Philly for sure.
Yeah. Jeff?
I don't really have a preference between the two. What I am excited for, I guess there's 2 points that I want to make. The first one is I think we've talked about at length on Tony's show tonight and here about the problems that we're going to have when defenses can prepare for us. But what about the number one defense in the NBA with a week to prepare for somebody else? And that's what the Knicks were a lot of this season. When OG Anunoby's on the court, we're a defense that scheme and present problems for other people. And the other thing that I want to say that hopefully will give Knick fans hope is something that I said to Uncle Fulio on Twitter the other night. And that's that in the games that OG Anunoby has played, I think we're like 20-3. Well, if we only lost 3 games in 23, we ain't losing 4 and 7 if he's out there.
Any preference, Tom?
I like that. I like the way you put that. I'm going with the Heat. Even though I do think that they potentially could be the tougher matchup. I want revenge. I want revenge early. I want a revenge for hurting Julius Randle consecutive years. The rivalry is not just long standing from the years past, but there's a rivalry just within the past 2 years. I think a lot of other teams are scared of the Heat. I think they're equally as scared of the Knicks as they are of the Heat. So, I think if we beat them, that's going to put a little bit more fear and make us a little bit more scarier moving forward. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with the Heat. And if you just look at the matchup from last year, I think we were right there with them defensively, right? I think we've gotten better defensively.
Yes.
I think our biggest problems against them last year was the lack of shooting. I think we've answered that question as well. So yeah, their pedigree, their history, it tells you like these guys are gonna be a dogfight for us. But looking at how much better we got compared to, I'm put quotes up, how much better they got. I think we've gotten better on both sides of the floor, and leaps and bounds better than they've improved. So I think we can knock them out in 6 max.
Okay. All right. This super chat, and then one last question, and we out of here. Danny Thomas, appreciate you. Did everybody get it? Everybody answered
Yeah.
the question, right? Danny Thomas, appreciate you. Do you think adding DeRozan to the bench would help with scoring off the bench? Absolutely. I mean, yeah. I think it would help add some firepower to the bench. I want to hear the panel's opinion on this. Absolutely, it would. What it would take, whether or not it would make us better, given what we would have to give up. All of that, would need to be answered. But in a vacuum, absolutely.
Let me
Yeah.
go first because I gotta check my
Yeah.
food. Yes, and I think a lot of us wanted DeRozan in a trade this year as
Mhm.
opposed to Bogey, and Burke. So I'm gonna just leave it at that for me. I'll be right back.
Yep. Keith Turner, what is wrong with you? Everybody, if you haven't already, shout out to Keith Turner, always rocking with us. If you haven't
We
already,
love
hit the
Keith.
like button. It definitely helps. Last question, and we out of here. Would a first round loss to either Miami or Philadelphia be a failed season for you?
Mm.
I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
And the reason I say no is because you just said progress isn't linear, right? If, in other words, you know, do we have a chance? Absolutely. Are we getting to put our best team on the floor for this series? No. We're missing a huge piece of our puzzle in Julius Randle. So to me, we're on house money right now. This isn't a failed season. We won 50 games. And look, the 76ers are a really good team. The Miami Heat won 46 ball games this year. There's only 4 less than what we won. So it's not like the margins are very slim between the two teams, is my point. So it's not like
He
it's
won
this.
46 and they're in the 8th seed with 40. Wow. Wow. That just lets you know the quality of the teams
Right.
that you're playing. Sorry, Jeff, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I may be off a game or two. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure they won 46 games. There was a lot of competition in this Eastern Conference, and yeah, the Bulls and the Hawks are an unserious team, and they're just there because they're there. But Chicago even showed what they can do on a given day. They're tough, and they can play with you for a game or two. And other than that, look, all of those teams, I wrote about this in an article right before Sunday. They were all competing for the 5th seed through the 8th seed, depending on what happened during those games. Miami could easily be at the 5, and now they're in the 8. And don't write them off just because they're playing in Philadelphia, even if Joel Embiid is playing, right? I think they've got as good a chance as anybody to win that game. And
Right.
so to me, if the Knicks are favored at all, I would probably say it's a slight favorite. And certainly, if you're going to listen to the national media, I find it very hard to believe that any of them picked the Knicks to win.
Exactly.
So from that standpoint, I want to win to shut them up. But if we don't win, then you take it and you learn from it and you assess it. Why didn't we win? Was it because Jalen Brunson was by himself and he had another great series and all of the other role players didn't do it? And that means that we need to get rid of some of them and increase our talent base. Did we not win because Bam Adebayo tripped 3 of our players and broke 4 people's noses and we only could play 4 people the rest of the series? Context matters, right? Context always matters. But if we go out there and we have an Atlanta Hawks series, then I think I would be a little disappointed. Not gonna lie. If we get gentlemen swept or something like that with home court advantage, that would be very disappointing. There would have to be additional context to that. But again, how healthy is Isaiah Hartenstein? How healthy is OG Anunoby? How healthy is Mitchell Robinson? We have a lot of questions that we just don't have answers for right now. But I think that having a week off helps Isaiah Hartenstein at least for game one. And there are 1 or 2 days off in between games, almost the whole series. So that should help him be able to play extended minutes. And I think you're going to see probably a smaller rotation, maybe 7.5, 8 guys. I really do. I think he's going to shorten the rotation. I think he's going to rely on the Nova boys quite a bit. If Mitch is healthy, he's going to see a few backup minutes. I don't think a lot. I think you're going to see mostly Hartenstein. I think you'll see Deuce in 15, 20 minutes. And I think you'll see Bogey. And I think that's about it. And I think Bogey may be the key to this team, because I think in order for this team to be successful in its current iteration, we need him to do what he did in the Chicago game. Come in, make a couple of tough threes or a couple of tough shots just during the time that Jalen's not on the floor. Just get us some buckets, right? And just give us that adrenaline boost on offense to carry us through the 5, 6, up to 8 minutes where Jalen's not going to play. It's not going to be long, but Bogey, I think, is more equipped to do that than anybody else in our lineup, except maybe DiVincenzo. But I think I think it's going to be Bogey, and I think we have the tools to put around him defensively where he's not going to kill us on defense, especially if you're talking about playing him mostly with the starters.
You muted.
Queen.
Tony, the question was, would a first round loss to Miami or Philadelphia be a failed?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Oh, my bad. I was sitting here watching, didn't realize I didn't turn my camera back on. But yeah, absolutely. And I'm not looking at context at all. The context is we got to get out the first round, and I don't care which one of these guys is the opponent. I don't care if it takes 7 games. We have home court advantage. Take advantage of that. We've had adversity all year, so we can't use that as an excuse. And whether it's Miami or Philadelphia, I don't think Philadelphia is at full strength, and I don't think Miami is. Granted, they made a run last year as an AFC. I just don't think it's the same team they've been over the past couple of years. They look like a different team. They've
been injured though.
Yeah, and they are just getting everybody back full strength. They do have great coaching. I wouldn't be surprised.
And
Rozier too.
All those things are true, but I think I'm not accepting it. I'm not accepting it. I want progress, and even with the narrative, they beat us last year, da 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 da. I don't care. I think we've made the proper adjustments to beat Miami based off of last year. Like I said, we're a better defensive team than we were. I think we're a better defensive team than they are, and I think our offense is vastly improved. The things that hurt us against them last year, I don't think will hurt us this in the same fashion this year. Now, if they find a different way to beat us, I'll tip my hat off. But I'm not accepting it. So yeah, for me, unacceptable.
Yeah, for me, it wouldn't be a failed season. Jeff brought up a good point. The difference between seeds 2 through 8 in terms of talent, in terms of wins, remember, seeds 2 through 8 were up for grabs through the last game of the season. So it's not like there's a big gap between the second seed and the eighth seed. There's a big gap between the third seed and the sixth seed. This Eastern Conference has been, anybody could have been 2. Anybody could have been 8.
Mhm.
There was a time when we were 2 games out of the 7th seed. So I'm not going to, and we snagged the second seed on the last game of the season in overtime against the Chicago Bulls, and I'm glad we did. But I'm not going to me believe that we're the second best team in the conference, and these other teams
Are
are
below us.
really not. Like in years past, there was a huge difference between 2 and 8, 2 and
Mhm.
7, 1 and 8. This is just not one of those years where it's that huge of a difference between 2 and 7.
But
I'm
can I?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but take advantage of that home court. Whether you know what I mean, like we got that 2 seed now, or whether it was 3, whatever it was. You know what I mean?
Take
If it
advantage of it, but what I
if
will
it takes 7, you better win game 7.
right, if it gets to 7, because of the parity, they can win in the Garden, and we can win there. Because of the home court is really an issue when it gets to game 7. Before game 7, anybody can win on any other court. But what this is what I want to say why I wouldn't and this is just me. I know people feel differently about this. The playoffs are a different ball game, and we may have been able to we've gotten away without playing with our second best player since January 27th, and I'm hoping we'll be able to get away with it in the playoffs. But going into to the playoffs without Julius Randle, it makes a difference. I'm not going to sit here and say that, well, we did it in the regular season. We should be able to do it I hope so, but that's not a given. That's like Boston going in without Jalen Brown or Sacramento going in without Fox or Sabonis. Even if the other players have rallied around and they still got in and got a good seat, it's still tough in the playoffs if you're going in without your second best player. So I know Knicks fans, I ain't trying to put a pin in your balloon. I'm super excited myself to see what the team does. But if you're asking me, am I going to be disappointed if we lose to Philly, who's really a top 3 seed um, in the Eastern Conference, and they have their second best player and we don't? No, I'm not. It's not a failed season to me. The Knicks are still well on their way to winning a championship in the next few years, and that's just where I am. But I do hear you, Tony, in terms of where you are, lady in the shop.
I'm with Tony. It's a failed season because I feel like as a team in any sport, if you make it to a postseason, the goal is to continue to be able to grow and show growth. I think it's not even just about getting the revenge on Miami, but I don't know. I feel like part of me, I'm holding this team to somewhat of a high standard just because they have overcame a lot of hardships throughout the regular season. And I think it's a combination of that. And again, even if Randall was here and healthy, I think I would still feel the same way. Like, especially because we didn't really get to see Randall perform to the best of his capability last postseason, right? So I would have been looking for, okay, let me see what not you just you can do, but what you're all gonna do as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my lens is at now. I'm looking at the team as a whole, not just Jalen Brunson. We know what he can do, but I'm looking at the supporting cast. Josh Hart, can you help and step up throughout the series every game? Dante DiVincenzo, can you step up? You guys talked about how Dante DiVincenzo he's able to get to the basket. I want to see him do that a lot more and be more aggressive. I've heard Sim say with him and Tony talking how he wants to see OG be more aggressive and contribute and get more points. OG's going to need to be more aggressive as well. Miles McBride, I'm not putting a lot of pressure on him, but it would be nice if he can come through and give us, if you can give us at a minimum 14 points, that would be nice, 16 points, because I know you're capable of doing that. And I don't think this is the time for anybody to like be passive. You know what I mean? I think this is the time for guys to be aggressive, step up to the plate. You've been doing it throughout the regular season.
Mhm.
Forget the name that it's the playoffs. You know it is, but go out there and give 200% as you can. And I know that that means some games throughout a series, it may mean some guys may have to play 50 minutes, you
Mm.
know, but it's about getting the job done. And I think when you go out there, you do your job, whether it's on the defensive end or the offensive end. I'm looking for this team. For me, I agree with Tony. They have to get out the first round because to me, you can't go to the second round last year and then we kind of go back this year. And I don't want to hear people saying, oh, well, we had injuries. Yes, we know that. Randall was injured last year. We know. Let's move on. I think it's about growth. And as a team, you have, just like how Randall's been out when OG was out, and I kept harping on this team has to figure out how to win without them, and they figured out how to do it, they have to do the same thing for the playoffs. And I'm going to say another thing before I end it off. The Knicks had a hard time inbounding that ball against Chicago. Don't know what they're going to do, but they need to figure out that formula because guess what? That defense is going to be on fire in the postseason. And every time Josh Hart was taking out that ball or whoever was taking out, we couldn't get the ball in bounds. I'm surprised we didn't get a 5-second violation at the way we were struggling to get that ball in bounds. So I think with this rest, I think the mentals need to be checked and the Knicks got to figure out, just clean up some things because, again, I don't want to see them get out in that first round, but they're going to have to clean it up because I got to get me some anxiety pills because I already see they're going to have me every game down to the wire. That's the way it's looking right now.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I think the higher your expectations are, you definitely gonna need some Pepto Bismol and some, some other, because these are the cardiac kids. At least that's how I felt in that Chicago
Yeah.
game, because I really wanted the Knicks to win 50 games, and it seemed like in the fourth quarter and overtime was doing whatever they could to give that game away. So yeah, I mean differences of opinion on that front. So let's just see what happens. Any last words?
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you to you, Queen. Fantastic job hosting as always. Tony, it's good to hang out with you again, man. You always are an educator. I always appreciate your opinions and your takes. And Lady and the Chef, one of the two Knicks chicks, such a privilege and honor to share the stage with you. This is so much fun. This has been the most fun Knicks season I've ever had, just because not only the product on the court, but the product on this Queen's Court and on the Dope Soul show and to be able to enjoy it with our Knicks family in this way, in a way we've never really gotten to experience this before. It's like Tony said, like they hadn't really had a season quite like this. I mean, the We Here season was special, but this is more here than the We Here season. This is Jalen Brunson as an MVP level. This is we get to share in something. It really feels like it's special. It really feels like this is a special team that can do some special things. And I just hope that the ride takes us as long as it can go.
Yeah, no doubt. Any other last words?
All right, I'm just gonna enjoy. I enjoyed the journey, and now I'm gonna try to enjoy this next journey. 14 more wins. That's all we need.
60.
16.
16. Pardon me.
He wants us to lose in 6
Right.
games in the NBA final.
Hey, 14 wouldn't be a disappointment.
No,
Right, right.
You're right.
You're right. We're in the finals.
But if you get that far, you might as well close the deal, right?
That's a fact. That's a fact. Pardon my math.
Um, shout out to to the chat. Yeah. So Lady and the Chef, you guys have anything going on?
Yeah, two Knicks chicks. Check us out. We'll be on tomorrow evening at 6:30. We're on every Tuesday, Thursday at 6:30, and Saturday mornings we're on at like 10:30, 11, a little bit before Ron, and then Ron takes over for like his 3 hour, 4 hour marathon of show. God bless Ron, because that he be on. I'll go to like three stores. I'm talking like I stop at Walmart, ShopRite, and another store, and Ron is still on. Like I'm listening to Ron while I'm in the car, and I'm like, what? And he's still going. So, but yeah, shout out to Ron. We're actually trying to schedule something to be a guest on his show, and then I got Tony's information, so we'll have him, and then I'll still be adding in the link and Twitter. So Jeff, Ajay, anyone wants to join us, Staffa, and we got to get you on Steph as well, and then I'm still gonna be organizing to have our women's ladies' night monthly show. So I'm working on that too as well. And I'll be looking out for any upcoming lives broadcasting happening for the playoffs. So I don't know if Sim is doing anything or Morning Brew Sports, anyone's having anything. So I'll be looking out for that as well.
Yeah, definitely.
We
I
still
believe,
got
I believe so. We'll see. Yeah.
yeah, we're still trying to collect tickets for
The playoffs, the
the
lounge.
playoffs. It's
Yeah.
looking
Oh,
like
really? I didn't even see it. There was a link.
yeah. I mean I don't have it to share. I'll
Oh,
link out with Sim and see how he could get it out again. I know
oh.
it's in the previous video has the link. The
Mhm.
previous MBK video has the
So
link.
this is for a playoff game.
Yes, game 2 lounge. I think it's like 520.
Oh, y'all gonna have to start sending stuff to my email. I had no idea. Y'all have to start emailing me unless I missed the email. So that I know. So for Dope Soul Sports Talk, we're going tomorrow, Tuesday. We have two shows this week, Tuesday and Thursday. So Tuesday, 9:00, 9:15, we're gonna do the end of the regular season review. And then Thursday around 9:15, we're going to do the playoff preview. I believe that 7-8 game between Philly and Miami is on Wednesday night. So when we do the show Thursday, we'll know who will be playing, and we'll go in depth and in terms of breaking that series down. Whoever wants to join us, anybody in the chat, we'll have the phone lines up. Maybe hop on the panel. If you don't want to call in to give us your take, it should be a lot of fun. Both nights. Thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter at BKSteph33. Subscribe to Dope Soul Sports and Knicks Talk. And I just want to really quick give a shout out to DJ Shuttle. But this is the MBK family of shows. Shout out to Simeon Russell. Haven't seen him in a while. Hope all is well with you, my brother. Pre-game, post-game, the shoot around with Sim, NBA wrap-up with Ron of Still Nick Fans, the controversy with Josh, a.k.a. Uncle Fulio, the Losers Lounge with Tony, yours truly, Tony Crow of Knicks and Bruises, live shows and videos by International Andy. I mean, whenever he wants to grace us with his video presence. Queen's Court every Monday with yours truly of Dope Soul Sports Talk, and special programming and events, including getting a lounge for the second game of the playoffs by Sim. I appreciate everybody in the chat. Until next time, peace.
Peace.